Hello, everybody. So we are in August, which means that this is the usual yearly August slump, where a lot of the stocks get sold off. The market in general gets sold off. Not a lot of volume. People are on vacation, which means that you can get some deals, some steep discounts, as I like to call them. And I have selected 5 stocks that I cover on the channel that are right now trading at discounts, in my view, and that I am actively buying this August. So let me go through the 5 stocks that I think are great deals right now. So the first one is Tesla. Yes, Tesla is not $100 anymore, but it should have never been $100. That was just the fear of the market that made it be $100. Tesla right now trading close to $240, in my view, is a steal. They've had a tremendous Q2. All of the fears that we had in early 2023 did not manifest themselves. The demand is still there. Tesla still sells every single Tesla car they make. In fact, I went in my area and looked at the cars available in my area, and it's not that many. It's like a dozen cars available for a company the size of Tesla that sells 2 million cars a year. There's only a dozen cars available, right? Go to a Ford dealership, see how many cars they have available. It's way more than a dozen. And I live in a big area. I live in Texas, so it's a big city, right? Only a dozen cars. That's crazy. Anyways, dynamic pricing. They have dynamic pricing, not price drops, right? This morning, the media is saying, oh, Tesla is dropping prices in China, but we know it's not how it works for Tesla. We know Tesla has dynamic prices. Sometimes they drop prices, sometimes they increase prices. Whenever they increase prices, the increases are never, ever broadcasted. You never hear about Tesla increases. You just hear about Tesla price drops. But that's not how they price, right? They don't do like traditional manufacturers. They have an MSRP for the year. It's the 2023 model. This is the MSRP this year. They don't do it like that at Tesla. They price it dynamically. The price you see on the website one day could change within a week. And that's how they've always done it. Tesla is my number one position. And I consider it, and this may shock the non-growth investor out there, but I consider it to be the lowest risk stock in my portfolio and in my style of investing, which is also why it's the biggest position, because I consider it to be the lowest risk. And if we just talk about Tesla, the cars, and of course there's a lot of coverage of Tesla on YouTube, but this is in a nutshell how I view Tesla vehicles. Why are they getting adopted? They're getting adopted because it's 0 to 1 moves on top of 0 to 1 moves, right? Peter Thiel, the co-founder of PayPal, the former frenemy of Elon Musk, wrote the book 0 to 1, where they explain how startups think and how Silicon Valley, kind of the second, really the third wave of innovation in Silicon Valley in the 2000s got started with this idea of a 0 to 1 move. What is a 0 to 1 move? Which is something that is in the DNA of both Elon Musk and Peter Thiel. What is that? It's the idea that once a product is 10 times better, right? Not 10%, not 15% better, but 10 times better. When you have a product like that, people will switch, and they will switch in drove. They will just flock to your product and buy your product and not even think twice. And of course, Elon Musk designed Teslas with that in mind, with thinking that you need to make a product that is 10 times better than the existing product. So that's why people are switching to electric cars. They're not switching to electric cars because of the environment. That's a myth. They're switching to electric cars because they are much, much, much better in just about everything you could hope for in a car. For example, they're about 10 times cheaper to charge, very, very cheap to charge a car with electricity. They last much, much, much longer. You may remember the 1,000,000-mile warranty that Tesla had in the early days. They have very few moving parts, about 18 moving parts in the Tesla, hundreds in a regular car. Now, when you have very few moving parts, what happens? You almost never get it fixed, because parts that don't move don't need fixed, right? That's the whole idea. So you have almost no maintenance compared to regular cars, but you have a lot of maintenance, software updates, right? The car doesn't become outdated because there's updates. You don't go to a gas station. Gas station is one of the reasons why I'm so bullish about Tesla. where in first principles thinking are gas stations a good idea? They are not a good idea, right? Gasoline is explosive. Gas stations have convenience stores. They have very high crime rates. They are number one spots to sell alcohol. Who thought it was a good idea to sell alcohol where people also come with their cars and drive back home? There's a lot of issues with the gas station. Of course, you don't go to the gas station when you get an electric car. You charge it at home. It's much safer. It's much better. Plug it in the garage and you're done. The car eventually drives itself as opposed to driving. The car eventually drives you places and drives home. The car has one popular culture, right? The car is in video games. Like if you look at all the popular video games, I don't play video games, but if you look at them, they have Tesla cars in them. You buy it online versus a dealership. The dealership, who enjoys the dealership experience? Very few people. Computer owners. Anyways, I could go on and on and on and on. It even goes down to the air filters of Tesla. When you have a Tesla driving on the wall on the road, it not only filters the air of the car, but it also filters the ambient air. They designed the car such that if a city had something like 60 or 70% Teslas, the air within the city would get regenerated and the fine particles of air would get filtered out. I mean, that's how crazy this car is. And so that's 10x on top of 10x on top of 10x, and that is why you are beginning to see them absolutely everywhere, at least in the US, and I know in many parts of Europe it's even more, because each their own, right? Each are going to have their different reasons to buy an electric car. People who like cars because they like to go fast, they'll obviously want to buy an electric car because they obviously go way faster than legacy auto. There's tons of reasons. And of course, these follow declining cost curves, right? These follow the cost curves of consumer electronics. This is a big distinction between an electric car, as Tesla designs them, and a legacy automobile. An electric car is a consumer electronics product. A legacy automobile is an appliance, no different from a washing machine. And that's a big distinction. Anyways, moving on. So where are we in the adoption of Teslas? Why do I say Tesla is a no-brainer stock for me? Why am I happy to add at these levels? And why do I think the stock is so cheap right now? I actually have a hard time understanding how this stock is not $400 or more, actually. Because the revenue, the products, the advancement on the part 3 of the plan is much further ahead. And the stock was way more expensive 2 years back than it is now. I mean, I really don't understand. But what's the adoption story? Well, here is the adoption story. Right now, the car market, the global market, is a $4 trillion a year market. There's about 76 million cars sold each year in the world. At this moment, right now, Tesla makes up 2.6% of all of the cars sold in the world. That's Tesla. And in my view, of course, like all tech, the adoption of electric cars will follow an S-curve. At 2.6% of all the cars sold in the world, we are just at the beginning of that S-curve. Now, keep in mind, in countries like the US, you're closer to 6% adoption. In places like Europe, you're closer to 10%. But that's still the global car market here. So you have places where the adoption of electric car is quasi-nil. Like, for example, the largest country in the world, India, as of 12 months ago, right? It's not China anymore. India now is the largest country in the world. India doesn't have electric cars. That's an example. So anyways, can they reach 20 million, right? That wouldn't be that far-fetched, assuming the population continues to grow at the rate it has. Let's assume that we have 80 million cars sold per year in 2030. Could they reach 20 million cars in 2030 like Elon Musk keeps stating? It's not that far-fetched to me. That would be 25% of the cars sold in the world. And if you did that, that would be a 10x. You would 10x currently how many cars they sell. You would 10x that. And it's not that far-fetched to me. Model Y is the highest selling vehicle in the world. They're working on the Model 2, which is going to be very popular in Europe, right? It's a small vehicles in Europe. The only reason why other electric brands are doing okay in Europe right now is because Tesla does not have a small car, right? Even the Model 3 in Europe looks pretty big. So they have tons going for them. And these factories, these gigafactories, as Musk has stated multiple times, the product is the factory. The product is not the product itself. It is the factory. It's the machine that builds the machine. And these factories, many of them are still ramping. Giga Austin is still ramping. Giga Berlin is still ramping. These factories will likely exceed 1 million cars a year, just like Giga Shanghai. They will likely do it. Who knows how many cars are going to be produced in Giga Mexico, but it will be bigger than Austin or Berlin or Shanghai. And then, if you follow Tesla, they're heavily discussing right now Giga India and Giga Indonesia or somewhere else in Indonesia. There might be other gigas that have not been announced yet that are about all of these markets. So it is not that far-fetched to imagine the company making 20 million cars a year. That would make the company 10 times bigger than it is today. I believe this company as an easy 10x left in it until 2030. Very bullish on the company, although I don't talk about it much on the channel because everybody talks about Tesla. And lastly, I'm not even talking about the conglomerate, the Tesla conglomerate, or the new Standard Oil. I mean, really, we should call it the first Standard Electric in a way, because Tesla doesn't deal with electricity. But the proper analogy in my view for Tesla is Standard Oil. Tesla is the new Standard Oil. And I'm not including all of the other things in that new Standard Oil, like Tesla Semi, Tesla charging, right? The charging network, right? That's just like a Standard Oil, right? Are they gonna be the lone disruptor of a gas station or close to the lone disruptor of a gas station? Some people think it's a possibility. Then you have the Powerwalls and solar, right? Still a small market for Tesla, but growing fairly fast. Tesla Energy, the mega packs, right? That alone could be as big as the cars themselves. Tesla AI and Dojo, they haven't really started monetizing that. All of the other ambitions of Tesla, like the bot that traditional Wall Street laughs at, like the heat pumps that we know there's going to be a heat pump someday. And then lastly, and this is my bonus here, which is the Musk network that I add there. Like for example, it's very easy to imagine that there's partnerships with Tesla and the other Musk companies. Networks have a lot of value, and it's easy to imagine, for example, I don't know, Tesla, the car system, cutting a deal with Tesla, the satellite company, and then you have high-speed internet in all of your cars, etc., etc., etc. I am very bullish on this company. Don't talk about it much on the channel because it's heavily covered by everybody else, but here it is. What is another company that I find dirt cheap right now? Well, it is Opendoor. Opendoor is kind of a company that I was pounding the table on in the early days on the channel, month 1 and month 2, because that's when the stock was trading near $1. Now, unfortunately, it's 300% higher than that. It's not trading at $1 anymore. I vividly remember early days on the channel, month 1 on the channel, I had CNBC bashing. It was a Friday at 11 a.m. CNBC was bashing Opendoor, saying Opendoor is gonna go bankrupt and it's an impending bankruptcy. Not able to read a balance sheet, like literally not able to read a balance sheet. And I bought Opendoor at $1, like out of spite, just to make a point, because CNBC doesn't even read the balance sheet. I mean, they don't. They can't do it. It's not possible. Anyways, moving on. So Opendoor got hurt. Yeah, they got hurt by the Fed's rate hikes. Well, you know what? Plenty of other people got hurt. Many banks got hurt by the Fed rate hike. Now they got a bailout with a BTFP program, but Opendoor and most other companies didn't get any bailouts. So of course there was hurt, lots of hurt. Nobody anticipated a 20x in interest rates. Especially when the Fed had said they wouldn't do it. So, of course, they got hurt greatly. And that's what we romantically call the negative HPA, negative home price appreciation. But guess what? Companies are agile. This is over now. They are almost out with their money-losing cohort. And that will soon be behind them. In the meantime, during this crisis, the company was agile. They got a new CEO, Carrie Wheeler. She's a CFO. She's great for these hard times for the company. The company right now is into sleep mode, as I like to call it, until the next boom of real estate inevitably comes. Because it will inevitably come. Because it is inevitable that interest rates will lean back towards zero, right? We can't handle interest rates this high. Governments can't handle interest rate this high. Companies can't handle it. We have many zombie companies in the market that need refinancing, that are not going to be able to refinance, like major household names. So anyways, interest rates will go back down. And the company now is almost done with its losses. In fact, the new cohort of homes that it buys are what I call lowball offers. They're doing what Wall Street has requested them to do, which is to whenever you go on their website, right? Opendoor is oftentimes mistaken with an iBuyer because they have an iBuyer function, right? So if you're trying to sell a house, you go on Opendoor website, you put your information, and Opendoor gives you a cash offer right now, sell your house really quickly, sell it now button, if you will. Well, those offers right now at Opendoor are giving are pretty low because that's the requirement of the market, and so the new homes that are bought and resold have a 10% contribution margin. Now imagine how much margin that is for like a $300,000 home, right? That's a lot of margin. This is going to be a very profitable business, in my view. But we're doing that, right? That's temporary. That's while we are in this crisis. When positive HPA comes back, they will get back to buying the home closer to the market and becoming this liquidity layer. Basically, because this is where they are. Opendoor is not a home flipper. Opendoor is a much bigger idea, in my view. So the risk of bankruptcy was vastly exaggerated. If you look at the numbers right now, they have $1.2 billion in cash. Their negative free cash flow is about $65 million, is expected in Q3. And the negative FCF is expected to abate by 2024. So we should be flat in 2024. If you do $1.2 billion divided by $65 million, you see that we have 18 quarters left, 4.5 years. 4.5 years is the runway right now at how much money they're losing. And of course, those losses will abate. This negative cash flow will abate. And this is not even mentioning their credit facilities. They have plenty of credit facilities left, right? That wouldn't come down to this. So anyways, and lastly, let me finish. What's the thesis for Opendoor? And by the way, I need to do another deep dive on Opendoor, which I will do, but I don't have enough time. But what is Opendoor? Opendoor is not a home flipper. Opendoor is not an iBuyer. Opendoor is much bigger than that. Opendoor is a threat to realtors and the MLS. Opendoor is a disruptor of rent seeking. Just like so many modern companies that I invest in, that we invest in, they are disrupting the rent seekers, right? We live in an online world. Everything is done online. Everything is done through an app. Why do we need to pay 6% to a realtor whenever we change homes, while most of the home search process is done by ourselves on our own on Zillow, right? We don't. The answer to that is we don't. Just like we don't need branches, just like we don't need dealerships anymore. We don't need that anymore. Opendoor is trying to disrupt that. We're doing the same thing that Airbnb is doing with mom and pop rentals, with mom and pop real estate investors. Airbnb is trying to disrupt that. Opendoor is the other side of the equation. To me, Airbnb and Opendoor are the two biggest disruptors in the real estate space. Don't forget that, of course, the real estate market is the biggest market in the economy. It is bigger than cars. It is bigger than transportation. So it's the biggest market. The real estate is the biggest expense we ever make. And so this is a company that has a shot at disrupting that. Right? Opendoor wants to be the liquidity layer upon which all transactions take place. The sell and buy a new home process, the round trip, is what they're trying to disrupt, where you don't have that 6 month to a year uncertainty of selling your house, buying a new house, getting a bridge loan, getting a storage unit, storing your stuff, right? The stress of a sale that doesn't pan out. All of this is gone with Opendoor, because Opendoor is trying to make it as easy as Amazon. You want to move to a new house. You typically have a house that you have for sale already. You put your house for sale with Opendoor. Opendoor buys it from you or lists it for you at a much lower fee than the 6%. And then at the same time, you buy the house through Opendoor. Opendoor acts as the liquidity layer. So at the end of the day, you only have one single intermediary, one single transaction, one single move, no bridge loan, no storage unit, nothing like that. And that's how I bought my new home with Opendoor, by the way. And I thought never, ever again will I go through a real estate process. And next time I sell a house and buy another house, you bet I will be going through Opendoor again, because if they make the process so easy, I'm saying this as a user of this product, both to sell a house and to buy a house. powerhouse. It's an outstanding company in my view. But I'm used to people disagreeing with me, so it's okay if you disagree. I know Opendoor is one of my more polarizing stocks, and I'm used to people disagreeing with me. That's the whole point of growth investing. It's like you invest in innovations where people don't agree with you. Moving on to Enphase. So what is Enphase? Enphase wants to become, and Enphase is cheap right now, by the way, as well, just like Opendoor. Opendoor, by the way, you're getting a nice discount compared to the hype prior to Q2. Same for Enphase. Enphase, you're getting a nice discount. Why is Enphase cheap right now? Well, it's cheap because they kind of have a slowdown due to their interest rates, right? Less people are installing solars right now, but I think it's entirely temporary. What does Enphase do? Enphase wants to become the leading ecosystem for residential solar around the world. That's my best description for Enphase, the leading ecosystem for residential solar around the world. And what's the thesis? Why would you want to invest in a company like Enphase? Why do I invest in Enphase? Because my thesis is that simple. All residential homes out there will adopt solar someday. That's my thesis. Just like all residential homes have a fridge, have a TV, there will be a time they all have solar. And why will they adopt solar? Because you have enough sun reaching your roof to power your future needs. And by future needs, I mean the electric vehicles can be powered by your solar roof. The air conditioning can be powered by your solar roof. And of course, since this revolution doesn't happen alone, right? This is convergent revolutions. They all happen together. If you believe in the heat pump proposition, which I do, the solar system will also power your heat pumps in the winter, such that even if you live in a cold place, your heating will be electric because you'll be using a heat pump that will be powered by your solar system. And that's the thesis. Every single home has enough sun reaching its roof for it to be generating enough energy for itself. And by the way, even if the roof is small, you can do like they do in Europe. You can put solar panels on, quote unquote, on the balcony, but solar panels can be put on walls, right? They don't have to be put on roofs either. And even if you were to have, like, say, the world's tiniest roof, keep in mind this is a temporary issue because solar panels are gaining more and more efficiency. And when I look at the data on solar panels, when I look at the cost curves, I don't have any issue imagining solar panels being twice as powerful within 10 years. No issues at all. If you look at what they do in the lab right now, solar panels in the lab are more than 100% more powerful than the commercial solar panels we put on our roofs, right? The efficiency of solar panels is only 20%. That efficiency can go much higher in the future. That's why we have these declining cost curves. So Enphase, I believe, is best positioned to take advantage of this. Stock right now is suffering a little bit because of the interest rates, because people are hesitating to install solar because they see these high interest rates. And so you always have this anchoring period where, you looked at interest rates a year ago, they were 4%, now it's 6-7%. So in your anchoring, in your brain, you're like, I'm not going to act right now, but eventually people will act because the rates are going up, electric rates are going up, and solar is getting cheaper, making it like a scissors effect, where I view this as inevitable, because if you have on one hand the product getting cheaper and on the other hand the alternative getting more expensive, you are going to adopt the product. Why do I believe Enphase is my best pick in the space? Why is it? Because they use microinverters technology. Microinverter is panel agnostic. You can put a microinverter under any panel, anywhere, right? It turns every single panel into its own system. Microinverters, in my view, they're the best technology to turn AC into DC. They don't have the drawbacks of string inverters. String inverters are bulky appliances. That's what they are. They are appliances. They use big, heavy transformers to turn your DC, this is DC into AC, by the way, I wrote that a little too fast, to turn your DC into your AC current. They are an older technology. Microinverters, in my view, using electronics to invert current, in my view, is the better way to do it. In a nutshell, the way microinverters work is very, very, very similar to a beefed up bridge of diodes, if you want to get into the technicals here. Enphase, in my view, they have the best solution. The product is easy to install. It's a very, very light product to install. So that's one of the big advantages, unlike string inverters, which are very heavy. It's also redundant. So if a string inverter breaks, you lose your entire panel system. Your entire solar array is lost as a home. So you can see how this is a major problem if you produce your own electricity and rely on your electricity. In the case of Enphase, it's one microinverter that will break. So if you have 20 solar panels, you only lose one out of 20, right? So your system, you wouldn't even notice. You barely even know. They have a better warranty, customer support. And this leads installers to recommend Enphase. Installers tend to love Enphase because Enphase are easy systems to install. They can be commissioned within a day, typically, for easier system. They have AC coupling, not DC coupling, right? So many systems still have DC coupling, and it's tough to find workers that know how to handle DC. Lots of things going for it. And then the IRA subsidies for microinverters are also absolutely insane in my view. 1 cent per watt is what the subsidies are like for microinverters, and of course Enphase is ramping manufacturing of microinverters in the United States. In my view, eventually, as the costs go down, those subsidies, as they are, might cover most of the cost of goods sold for Enphase, which is really stunning. Let me move on to SoFi. So SoFi is another stock that has crashed recently, and in typical SoFi fashion, this is almost to believe that there are traders who are always using this move. You know, SoFi typically will have a run up prior to earnings, and then will post great earnings, a great amount of new customers, etc., and then the stock will drop, about 30%. And this is what happened again. Anyway, SoFi is a similar story to the end of dealerships, for example, or to the end of gas station. SoFi, what do? They're a neobank. They're a bank that targets a lot of Gen Zs and millennials. But what is the main competitive advantage of SoFi? If we're honest, their main competitive advantage is that they don't have thousands of branches. And because they don't have thousands of branches, they can offer the best financial products, the best banking product in each category, because you don't have to sustain 8,000 branches like, say, Bank of America. You don't have to sustain that legacy structure, that legacy inertia that banks have. And that's why SoFi can offer just about the best product in every single category. When you have the best product, what do people do? People switch, right? It's a debate. Switching a bank to another bank because one bank has a 20% higher interest rate. Yeah, you're going to debate that. You're going to be like, I don't want to go for inconvenience. Switching from one bank to another bank because one bank gives you 0 on a savings account and another bank gives you 4% on a savings account, you're going to switch. Like, anyways, that's very obvious to me. And in my view, of course, SoFi is a bet on the end of cash. We don't need cash anymore because of course, Gen Z and millennials do everything digitally, right? There used to be a time where people thought it was odd to pay for something that only cost $2 or $3 with a credit card. Those times are gone. People don't have any issues paying for things that cost $1 with a credit card, right? The digitalization of money is going ahead full steam. And with that, it means new institutions, in my view, are going to come. SoFi is going to be one of those institutions. They don't have a branch. And not having a branch is a big deal, and many millennials much prefer dealing with an app, dealing with your phone, than they like dealing with people at a branch. And that's why I'm very, very positive about SoFi. The last company that I find very cheap right now, whose stock reacted kind of like SoFi, by the way, is HIMS. So what does HIMS do? HIMS is an interesting disruptor. So Tesla, we saw, disrupts dealership and gas station. And we saw that of course, Opendoor is trying to do that with realtors, right? And get rid of realtors by having one app, one system. SoFi does this with branches. And HIMS, the way I look at it, is they do that with medical office buildings and with the thousands of pharmacy. Because today, what HIMS does is they have an app. And if you have an app, you can have a platform of doctors on the app, and you just log into the app and you see a doctor, and the doctor could be anywhere in the US. That's not a problem. And of course, that's very fast because your doctor does not need to be available at your location physically, right? No, the doctor is digital. The doctor is in the app. And they also have only two large warehouse pharmacies in the US, which allows them massive scale. So the question is, do you need thousands of pharmacy in the era of 2-day shipping? Well, it's actually 2-hour shipping depending where you live. 1-day shipping most of the US, 2-day shipping at worst. In the era where shipping is so quick, do you really need so many local pharmacies? No, you don't. You can just get things shipped in the mail, and oftentimes when you get things shipped in the mail, it also helps with stigma. There's stigma associated with walking to a pharmacy to pick up a drug. This is not something you have when something is shipped in the mail discreetly. So HIMSS is both a doctor platform and a pharmacy platform all in one, in my view. They eliminate the prohibitive costs of healthcare by getting rid of these two systems. They entirely eliminate it. So, and because of that, they can be cheaper than insurance in most cases. And what I mean is that in most cases, they're actually cheaper than copays. Even copays in most cases, HIMSS can beat the price of copays, right? And you don't get issues like recurring doctors, for example, like a doctor wants to see you again in 4 months to refill your prescription, so you have to go back in, pay another $200 just to get a prescription refills. HIMSS doesn't do that because it merges the pricing of the doctor visit and the pricing of the drug. They're merged all in one. And so what they do is they eliminate complexity for 70 to 80% of treatment that don't need to be in person. 70 to 80% of treatment can be done remotely. You don't need to be in person for that. And if you understand the grand vision of HIMSS, you know that their goal is to treat people early on by providing them healthcare, because typically the treatments that require in-person visits, typically those treatments tend to be later on, in a later stage of a disease, not in the early stages of a disease. Oftentimes, if a disease is caught early on, that's called preventative medicine. If an issue is caught early on, oftentimes it doesn't need to get to the in-person stage, right? It doesn't, like take heart disease. If you address heart disease early on, at very, very early signs, like in your early 30s, you have early signs, you may have heart disease. If you address it very early on with an app that coaches you, an app that provides you possible drugs that you may need, an app where you have a doctor that you can meet, we have a chat box, an app that is educational, and you start having a relationship with that app in your early 30s, when you say you're 50 or 60, are you going to need to go in at the hospital to get a stent put in? You know, are you going to need to go get surgery to get a stent put in if you addressed your heart disease 30 years earlier? And the answer to that, in my view, is no. That's why HIMSS is offering healthcare and not sick care, like a lot of the legacy healthcare system that we have today. Very bullish on HIMSS, and of course HIMSS, like many of the other companies in this video, is still misunderstood by the majority of the people, and this is why these stocks are cheap. So, in conclusion, this was not investment advice, this is just entertainment. I hope you were entertained. Appreciate your like, I appreciate them all, it helps the video. Appreciate you subscribing to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.